Welcome into another edition of Chalk Talk. Great to have Ben Axelrod back. I'm Nick Camino, and we've got a full show for you here. We're going to talk college football. We're going to talk NFL, picks against the spread, all of it for entertainment purposes only. And Ben, welcome back. We tried to hold down the fort for you while you were gone. You were at the World Series.
I was.
And wow, what a finish that was, huh?
It was. Yeah, I mean, that was, I covered all 4 games in Houston there,
Yeah.
so I saw 4 Nationals wins, and yeah, just a crazy World Series, and to see Washington pull it off. I was out there helping out our sister station out in D.C., so
yeah.
pretty cool to see it all go down. But yeah, I thought I was going to get Wally pipped there by Jay after that perfect week, but he came back down last week.
Did.
So
he did.
That's usually how this show goes.
Exactly. So Jay Crawford was filling in for Ben the last couple of weeks. We appreciate him doing that. His first week, 6-0 against the number, and I was giving him a hard time. He took all 6 favorites, and he was just let me see what happens. He goes 6-0 last week. You're right. He came down to earth a little bit more, but in filling in for Ben, he went 8-4 over 2 weeks, and you know,
he went 2-4 last week, and I can't say I didn't do a little fist pump. It would have been tough to boot the guy who went 8-2 or whatever to bring me back after my 1-5 week last week.
All right, now Ben still gave us some picks last week, and we provided those on the chalkboard. So last week, Ben, you ended up going 1-5. Tough week for you. You're 26-26-2 on the season.
Yep.
As we said, Jay last week went 2-4. He goes 8-4 in his 2-week span. And I'm still 2 games under 500. I went 3-3 last week, 24-26-4 on the season. I'd like us both to get above the 500 mark. I'd feel pretty good about ourselves if we could do that. That's kind of the goal here, is to get over 52.4% against the spread here. Can we do that?
We're going to have to pick some winners here. And we're going head-to-head on, I know, 2 of these NFL games. So at the very least, we'll gain some separation one way or the other between yourself and me.
All right, let me hit one NFL storyline, one college storyline. NFL. The New England Patriots lose their first game. That was on Sunday Night Football. They lose to the Ravens. That Ravens team has kind of been up and down. But right now, the San Francisco 49ers are the lone unbeaten team. In your eyes, are they the best team in the NFL, or are you still not buying into what the Niners are doing?
Yeah, I'm still not even sure they're the best team in the NFC. I think the NFC is so heavy up at the top. They play Seattle this week. I think Seattle's right there with them as far as the top teams in the NFC. The Saints coming off a bye. That NFC East between the Cowboys and the Eagles, you got to figure one of those 2 teams is going to put it together eventually. And then in the NFC North, Packers, Vikings. I mean, this is just a loaded
is wide open,
NFC. The Panthers, I know the 49ers beat them down last week, but we've seen them play pretty well, especially for a team that's had some quarterback issues. So, yeah, I mean, the 49ers are undefeated. They'll probably have, the path through the NFC playoffs will probably go through Santa Clara. But, I think the NFC is still wide open. In the AFC, I still think the Patriots are Patriots and everybody else at this point. The Ravens, that felt like a game where the Ravens win in the regular season and then don't get it done in the AFC title game or something.
Yeah,
so
John Harbaugh, he does a nice job against Belichick.
I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL.
I agree with you. I do, admittedly, I have a couple buddies that are Patriots fans. They live out there, and they were saying they think that might have been the best thing to happen to them. Sort of, not that they needed a wake-up call, but sometimes it kind of brings you down a peg. It's like, okay, we got to bring it every week now.
Yeah, I mean it's the NFL. You don't need to go undefeated. You could lose 3 or 4 games and still have home field advantage through the entire playoffs. So, to take a loss and learn some things about yourself, obviously you'd prefer to win the game. But, yeah, this feels like a chance for the Patriots now to recalibrate heading into the second half of the schedule.
And college football this weekend, it doesn't get bigger than LSU versus Alabama. Did either of us pick that game?
I did.
Okay, you did. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I want to ask you, though. You follow college, I think, a little more closely than I do. Is this the rivalry in college football now? I know LSU actually, this shocked me, hasn't won the game since 2011. But every year this game has seemingly had implications, especially since the playoff came around in 2014. Ohio State, Michigan is always there. The Iron Bowl is always there. But this seems to be the game year in and year out that is coming every year and that is going to have implications on who's going to be there in Georgia or in Atlanta for the SEC title game, and then likely for the college football playoff as well.
That's a great question, Ben. I mean, in terms of rivalry, You mentioned Auburn, Alabama,
Yeah.
Ohio State, Michigan rivalry. I don't think you can top those. I really don't.
Yeah.
But in terms of importance the last several years, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think whoever loses this game, as long as it's not ugly.
Yeah, still there.
Oh, still right there. Still have a great opportunity. I would say still have a better chance than somebody in the Big 12 or the Pac-12 with one loss, as long as it's close. You can't have a 40-0 situation. I will say this about this game, and maybe if people look at the total, again, we do this through the lens that is sports gambling. I know these games the last few years have been 6-0, 9-3, 14-6. I think that we're going to have more scoring than we normally do in this game. I think in watching both of these teams play, their defenses are good, but I just think that this game will have more scoring than we've grown used to in those last big matchups you've talked about.
I think one thing that's interesting about this year's matchup too is, aside from last year, this is the first time both of these teams have had NFL caliber quarterbacks. I mean, we're so used to
LSU never has a quarterback.
LSU never has a quarterback. They have one now in Joe Burrow, who's still the front runner for the Heisman, has been for most of the season. And then right behind him is Tua. Tua is going to be probably the number one pick next year. We'll see if he's ready to go for this game.
Game time decision
from a health standpoint. But we're so used to both of these programs having caretakers. Even A.J. McCarron for Alabama, and the guys they've had. And then, LSU has always gone with this kind of just ground and pound type offense. This is the first time you talk about that total where it feels like there's two explosive offenses out there on the field.
I asked Jay last week, we were talking about the college football playoff, just kind of like the state of college football. Are you okay with the 4 teams? Obviously better than the BCS, but there's some people calling for expansion. Ben, I love the way it is because I feel like it gives so much importance to the regular season, but I also realize you could be leaving a Power 5 conference out. Where are you at on the 4-team playoff?
I'm fine with it. I think it's gone well. I think it is inevitable that it's going to grow. The thing that's always made sense to me is going to a 6-team model where you have the 2 byes built in, just like the NFL. That way you can give automatic bids to all the Power 5 conference winners. Okay. You can also factor in, a wild card type of team as well, or an at-large, I guess it would be in college. You could go to 8 and 5 automatic bids and, 1 bid for
maybe like a non-Power 5 with a group of 5.
From the group of 5 and then 2 at-larges. I think there are ways to grow it and for it to still place an importance on the regular season. But that's been the one thing I think that it used to be like in college football, if you lose, that's it, your season's over. Now for a team like Ohio State, who although
you could probably have a hiccup,
they've been on the outside looking in these last 2 years. So for SEC teams, I think it's given them a little bit more leeway. But I do think with at least the 4 teams, we've still seen that importance there during the regular season.
All right, here we go. Picks against the spread. Week 11 of college football. Week 10 of the NFL. All of it for entertainment purposes only. Let's start with college, and we're going to go with me here, right? On this one. All right, I'm going to take Oregon State. This game's on a Friday night. It's in Corvallis. Oregon State is getting 10 points. They're at home against Washington. I've always felt, Ben, teams off a loss of a big game, I think sometimes they have that letdown factor where I think Washington is a better team. I do think they'll go in and somehow win this game. But I think it'll be close. I mean, I think that Oregon State right now, people probably aren't paying much attention to them because the focus has been on Oregon and Utah in the Pac-12. But the Beavers are second in the Pac-12 North. They are 4-4 right now on the season, and I don't think a lot of people are covering them, talking about them. Maybe a little bit of an East Coast bias there, and I think people look at Peterson and Washington and they're like, okay, that's just a really good Huskies team that's going out there. I just think 10 points is too many on a Friday night. I think that place will be rocking. And again, Washington off what I thought was a heartbreaking loss to Utah now. I think the Beavers have a lot to play for.
Yeah, I think your logic lines up there. You kind of said it. Oregon at home, primetime, Friday night, with 10 points, and then a letdown. 10 points is a lot of points in a game like this. So, I can't fault you on this one.
Okay, let's go to Penn State now. Penn State is -6.5. They are on the road. They'll be in Minneapolis, but they're playing Minnesota. I'm just not sold on Minnesota still. I look at the games that they played, especially at the beginning of the year, barely beat Georgia Southern, barely beat South Dakota State. I know this a couple weeks ago they blew out Maryland, but I think Maryland's kind of been falling apart a little bit. Ohio State plays them this week, but I just think Penn State is legit. I think right now they're ranked 5th in the country, 6th in the country, and I think that I think the winner of them versus Ohio State is going to be who's going to the Big Ten title game. I'm all in on this Penn State team. I think James Franklin's done a great job with that program, especially off of what they were coming off of with all the awful things that were going on at Penn State. So Penn State State -6.5. I know they're giving up points on the road, but I think this will be plenty. I think they win this game by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, this is, I mean, to me, a prove-it game for Minnesota. If you are as good as you say you are, and if you're begging College Game Day to come out there to Minneapolis and all that, then get it done at home against a legitimate Big Ten and right now still a national title contender in Penn State. Penn State just has such a overwhelming talent advantage, I think, in this game. You look at the recruiting rankings every year, and Penn State's right up there in the Big Ten. Nobody's up there with Ohio State as far as what Urban Meyer and now Ryan Day are doing as far as recruiting, but Penn State's right there with Michigan. They're right there bringing in the second best class and the third best class year in and year out in the Big Ten. And Minnesota's not that high, and I think that talent advantage in a game like that, or in a game like this, that's where that difference shows up.
I will say this about Minnesota, and we give Fleck a hard time, the head coach. He's done a nice job there. They're undefeated. And if they were to win this game, or even if they're to have one loss, I think they can kind of be that Northwestern of last year where they end up in the Big Ten title game against Ohio State. And we might laugh at the Big Ten West, but credit to them if they get to Indianapolis.
Well, they have the inside track for sure.
They do.
And that's, Wisconsin now has 2 losses in conference. Iowa's had some slip-ups, and they play Wisconsin this week. So that's going to be another loss for one of those 2 teams who have traditionally been the favorites in the Big Ten West. So, Minnesota, even if they drop this game, everything is still right there in front of them as far as getting to Indianapolis for the first time, I believe, in program history.
Okay, last game for me in the Big 12. But sometimes it's funny. You look at these lines and you say, okay, this one doesn't make sense. And sometimes you tend to go the other way because it doesn't make sense. I'm just going to stick to my guns here and just say, hey, I know the line doesn't make sense. I'm taking the better team. I'm taking the Baylor Bears -2.5 at TCU. The Horned Frogs are 4-4. They're coming off a loss at Oklahoma State. Baylor is the 11th ranked team in the country.
Yeah.
Matt Rule's done a great job there. I know this is one of those lines where you might say to yourself, it doesn't make sense. You got to go TCU, home team getting points. Baylor is the better team in this football game. If they don't win, something crazy is going on. I think they do enough to at least win by a field goal. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about a program overcoming sanctions. And
exactly.
Baylor, that was like last week. It seemed like everything was going
Rule's done a nice job with
there.
that.
Matt Rule's done a very nice job there. I did a post on WKYC.com this week about the national title odds for college football. Ohio State's the new favorite, just ahead of Alabama and Clemson now. But Baylor, they're top 10 in terms of national title odds. Now they're like 66-1, but in terms of
value,
well, it goes to 66-1 with Baylor, and then a big jump to 100-1 for everybody else who's still on the outside looking in. So, still alive in the Big 12, obviously, and this is their last big test here before some big games ahead of them.
I was just thinking about that. So Big 12 wise, Big 12 conference championship game, we'd be looking at maybe Baylor, Oklahoma, right now.
Yeah,
those would be the two. They still have to play each other. But I think in terms of that conference, Texas is kind of
they
hit or
just took
miss.
A loss. Last year we had the Red River rivalry as the Big 12 title game.
Right.
So anything can happen in that conference.
Okay, so just a quick recap: Week 11 college picks: Oregon State +10, Penn State -6.5, and Baylor -2.5. Ben Axelrod, your college picks for Week 11.
Well, I'm going to delve into some action.
Okay.
Shout out to my friends, all my OU friends, all my friends who are grads of Ohio University. We've got the Battle of the Bricks, Ohio University versus Miami of Ohio.
Two beautiful campuses.
Two beautiful campuses, two great alumni bases, all that. I'm taking the Bobcats, though, the Ohio Bobcats -7 versus the Miami Redhawks. Both these teams 4-4. Tied for first place in the MAC East. This game's in Athens. OU has a senior quarterback, Nathan Rourke.
Very good player.
One of the best quarterbacks.
Air Canada.
Yeah, Air Canada, one of the best quarterbacks in the MAC. Miami relying on a freshman quarterback, Brett Gabbert. I just like that, a senior quarterback.
It's his brother, Blaine.
Yeah, Blaine's brother from St. Louis. I like the idea of taking a senior quarterback in a rivalry game at home with first place on the line. OU gains a lot of yards. They also give up a lot of yards. Miami gives up a lot of yards and they don't gain a lot of yards. And you can say the same about points for both teams. So I just think this is a game where Nathan Rourke will shine. I think he'll get it done in the air. Ohio's won 5 of the last 6 Battle of the Bricks, and this is also a revenge game for them. Miami won last year's game 30-28. So I just think there's a lot that lines up for OU to win this game and to win it probably big.
Yeah, I've watched this game. I've watched both these teams this year. Watched Miami get blown out by Ohio State. Watched Miami get blown out by Cincinnati. Watched Ohio University play Pitt kind of tough, and I know we can't go too much early in the season and like opponents, things like that, but I just think OU, I think they're better on both sides of the football.
And I think Frank Solich, too, has built that program to be more consistent than Chuck Martin has at Miami.
I agree. I'm with you on that one.
So I'm going to ride with the program there.
Okay.
We're going to stay in Ohio, though, for my second pick. I do not like this pick, but there's too much that I do like about it that I'm going to go with it. Maryland plus 43 at Ohio State.
That's a lot of points.
I have wavered against the Buckeyes on and off this year. I've rode with them for some wins, and I mean, the Buckeyes, they only lost that opener against the spread. They've covered all their other games.
Since FAU.
And they've been winning big, and they've been covering big spreads. But this is the biggest line, 43 points. It opened at 44, actually, in a conference game since 2003.
That's Oklahoma. A lot of points for a Big Ten team.
Huge. And that's the thing is Maryland.
They're not playing Akron here.
Well, Maryland's not even the worst team in the Big Ten. Rutgers is the worst team in the Big Ten. Maryland beat Rutgers 48-7. Ohio State plays Rutgers next week. What's that line going to be? Like, this is just, I think this line is over-skewed. Maryland lost to Michigan last week 38-7. Lost to Minnesota a week before that 52-10. They would have covered both of those spreads if it were 43-point spreads. You're basically counting on this game for Maryland to score once. And for Ohio State to...
They score 10, you're okay.
They score 10, you're sitting pretty. So, you know, it's Ohio State now has shown the ability to cover massive spreads. And I mean, if Ohio State covers this spread, it's not going to shock me. But I'm going to take my chances that Maryland, you know, scores twice and I cover somehow.
Yeah, I mean, Maryland comes into this game 3-6 on the season, but Mike Locksley is actually... He's got some players. I mean, they've got the recruits. You know that Ohio State tries to recruit that area. I mean, they've got kids that can play. They just haven't won very much.
Well, and they've shown they can score. They put up 69 points against Syracuse. They've had some high-scoring games. I just need 1 or 2 scores here.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Remember, we're doing it against the line.
Right.
All right, so Maryland plus
43.
43 against Ohio State. Okay.
And then my last pick, Alabama -6 versus LSU. This is unpopular because the public is backing LSU huge in this game. If you go back to the preseason when they do those look-ahead lines, this line has shrunk from Alabama -16, I think, all the way down to Alabama -6 now. It opened up at 7. The public is just hammering LSU. Anytime the public is so heavy on one team, history would say you want to go the other way. So I'm just going to go the other way.
And the game is in Tuscaloosa.
The game's in Tuscaloosa. LSU hasn't beaten Alabama since 2011. Alabama's won the last 8 games, counting that 2012 national title game. For as much talk as there is about Joe Burrow, he played Alabama last year, failed to lead the Tigers to a single point.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the flavor of the month right now, LSU. Everybody likes them.
I think so. So I just think, you know, public backing of LSU, I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to take Alabama in this game.
I probably don't disagree with that.
And
Nick Saban at home,
And both teams coming off a bye. I think Alabama, that's an advantage for Nick Saban.
They needed it more, and I think they needed it. Okay, so just to recap your 3 college picks, week 11 here.
Yes, I've got the Ohio Bobcats -7 versus the Miami Redhawks. I've got the Maryland Terrapins plus 43 against the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide -6 versus the LSU Tigers.
Okay, we'll go right back to you for week 10 of the NFL. 3 picks, 2 of which you tell me we disagree on now.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the one actually we don't disagree on, even though this is my last pick. Seattle +6 versus the 49ers on Monday Night Football. I'm like flummoxed by this line. This feels like it should be a classic 3-point spread. It's obviously double that. I think Seattle with Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Chris Carson has one of the most talented offenses in the NFL. They've only lost by more than 6 once this season. That was against the Ravens a few weeks ago. I think the 49ers are inflated here just because they're undefeated and they're the only undefeated team left. But they showed some holes against the Cardinals last week on Thursday Night Football. And this is just too many points for Seattle. I just think Russell Wilson, the MVP front runner probably to this point, I just think it's too many points.
Something to me seems a little bit off with Seattle. I know we saw them here in Cleveland, and they needed overtime to beat the Buccaneers last week. Close game earlier in the year with the Bengals. There's a part of me that feels like something's off. But if we're just going with the points, I don't know that they win the game, but hitting probably too much here. this probably smells like a field goal game, if not 4.
And I don't, the 49ers are going to have to lose at some point.
I would think so.
I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks against the Panthers.
I did too. I thought they would lose that game.
I think they've been very impressive. I think their defense, they've been picking in the top 5 and picking defensive linemen.
True.
For it feels like a
Those
decade.
guys are blossoming
And now we're seeing it with
Yep.
Nick Bosa and DeForest Buckner. But, this doesn't feel like a special, like, undefeated team. This doesn't feel like a team that's going to make a run for the 72 Dolphins here. So
they have a soft spot in my heart because they have a fullback. But besides that,
one of what, 3 left in the NFL?
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I don't know if this Seattle beats them, but I think there's a chance that they do.
Yeah.
And if I think there's a chance of it happening and I can get 6 points, I'm going to back the Seahawks.
It seems a little bit high.
Yes.
Okay, now we have disagreements. So we'll just do these together? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's do these together. Well, first, why don't you give your pick that's separate?
Okay, that is the Thursday night game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Thursday night, I am going to take the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders. They are getting 1 point at home. They're 3-1 at home. And I think that this is an overreaction to the Chargers' victory over Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, they just had a slip up. It was just like one of those games where you go through the motions, you don't really care. You're playing at a 25,000 seat soccer stadium. I just think they're human and that can happen. Chargers were impressive, but I just think this is an overreaction. And the Raiders at home, I actually think that John Gruden has done a pretty nice job with a team that not a lot of people were expecting much of after the Antonio Brown situation. So I'm going to take the Raiders at home on Thursday night. I think the atmosphere will be crazy. Those people love their team even though they're leaving town. And so that's kind of where I'm at on a Thursday night.
Yeah, the Raiders, I think, have been one of the most pleasant surprises in the NFL this season. They're right in the mix for the wild card race in the AFC. The Chargers have been just so up and down that I almost, I do my picks column on WKYC.com each week, and I don't even want to pick the Chargers game each week because,
he picks every game. He doesn't want to pick it.
They can look like an AFC title contender one week, and they can, get the doors blown off them the next. So, for me, this is a stay away, but I can't fault you going against them. They've been so inconsistent. No outcome in this game would shock me.
Okay, now the 2 games that we disagree on.
Yes.
Browns versus Bills and Steelers versus Rams, right?
Yes, and I went.
All right, so you go ahead.
Well, let's just get to the Browns.
Okay, go ahead.
I took the Browns -2.5 against the Bills. You have the Bills
I have
plus
the Bills
2.5.
plus 2.5. Go with your thought process on this.
The Browns have to win at some point, right? Like they have
This
to
is
start
where we're
winning.
at, right?
Are they going to have to wait for 2 weeks when they play Miami here? They're going to have to win at some point. This is a bet on Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. I think there's some narrative you could go with there as far as now we're starting to get, the attention on why aren't they using Odell better? Why aren't they involving him in the offense more? Maybe this is finally the game where he comes out and gets the 15 targets a week he should be getting. I don't have a lot of faith in it happening. It's just, I think it could happen. I do think the Bills, though, at 6-2 are a little inflated.
Agree. Haven't played many great teams.
The quarterbacks the Bills have beaten: Sam Darnold, Eli Manning, Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Dwayne Haskins. That's not a murderer's row.
True.
Now, Baker Mayfield statistically has been worse than all those quarterbacks. So that's something that we could look at there. But I'm surprised the Browns are favored in this game. So I guess for me, this is just something where this line doesn't make sense to me, so I'm going to see what Vegas has up its sleeve.
Well, I've used your logic on the Browns the last 3 weeks, and I've lost every one of them. I've been picking the Browns, and they've been losing. So maybe this is just me feeling like I need to get a revenge factor. Bills 3-0 on the road this year, 6-2 on the season. I'm just done with the Browns. I think that they've lost something. I think there's a lot of distractions that are starting now. Freddie Kitchens seems to have lost control of this. He seems to be a little bit in over his head. It is a game that at the beginning of the year, yes, we pointed to this as a game the Browns should win, but I think the Bills have been surprisingly good and the Browns have been surprisingly bad. So I'll take the Bills getting 2.5. Maybe the Browns win, but it's only by a point. So I'm going to take the Bills.
Yeah, if you can get points against the Browns, at this point, I'm not going to fault you.
Browns win 21-20. How about that? All right. And then the last game that we also have disagreement on.
Yes.
Which line were we going with here? 3.5?
I've got -4.
-4. All right, I'll take the extra point.
Yeah, I've got the Rams -4 at the Steelers. You've got the Steelers +4.
You want me to go ahead first?
Yeah.
My whole thought is team coming cross country. I'm getting a home underdog. I know they were lucky to win. They've been lucky to win a couple of games, the Steelers. But despite who they put in there, Big Ben's been out, whether it's Rudolph, Devlin Hodges, they just the thing the Steelers do well is plug and play. They'll just plug and play guys, well coached. I'm going to go with the Steelers getting 4 at home just because of, The Rams have also looked off to me. This is the first time under McVay that they've lost 3 straight. Not that they're, not right now, but throughout the season they lost 3 in a row. It seems like they've been a little bit off. Some bad losses have been mixed in there by these guys. So I'm going to take the Steelers at home getting 4.
Yeah, I think I like the Rams coming off a bye here.
True,
I
they're
think
fresh.
that helps negate, the time difference. I think this is a 4 p.m. kick too, so a little easier on the time. I think this is a letdown spot for the Steelers. Everybody's kind of starting to talk about, watch out for the Steelers. Mason Rudolph and the Steelers, and coming off of last week's win over Indianapolis. But to me, I watched a lot of that game because that was the 1 p.m. game on before the Browns game. Brian Hoyer was moving that ball at will, other than the pick 6 to Minkah Fitzpatrick, and that was.
Well, the Colts are supposed to win that game,
right? And that was a
laces out, Dan.
That was a Colts offense without T.Y. Hilton, not a very impressive wide receiving core. And I just think if Brian Hoyer can do that to you defensively with those weapons, what's Jared Goff and Sean McVay going to be able to scheme up with the receivers they have in Los Angeles? I do worry about Jared Goff on the road in a potential cold weather game. That's my concern. But the Rams had their early season hiccups, and I think they've kind of flown under the radar since. I think the Steelers now are a little
maybe they're filling
over
themselves
the radar. So to me, I always like Sean McVay. I always like the Rams, and I'm still not sold on this Steelers team yet.
Okay, so to recap here, I've got the Raiders +1, and what's the other game that you have differently?
I've got the Seahawks +6 against the 49ers.
+6. I got the Raiders +1 against the Chargers, and then we have disagreements here. Ben's on the Browns.
Yep.
I'm on the Bills. Ben's on the Rams. I'm on the Steelers.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun
weekend.
weekend.
It will be
fun Sunday.
Thanks for joining us on another edition of Chalk Talk.